Hello everybody, it is good to be back today. It is Friday and no one is more grateful than me that this week had come to an end. It was a little much. Dragon Man and his mom are just as bombed. They only got back home from the school at nearly 9 p.m. last night. For a change, I did not go. Someone had to stay to prepare the dog food, etc., and I was only too glad to be able to volunteer. Anyway, guys, it is time to get into today's video. Now, today's video is a rather sensitive one and a deep dive which may take us places we do not wish to go. So, in order to take a deep breath before we begin with part 5, let's talk a moment about Catherine and William. Okay, so they had a trip to Northern Ireland and of course everyone was overjoyed to see them. They themselves looked genuinely happy to be there, so no problems, no hassles. They brought smiles to everyone they met. Honestly, a truly royal couple. Catherine's clothing was nothing to wax lyrical about, but 110% appropriate for where they were and what they were doing. But now I'm going to criticize, so get ready. Her hair looked okay when they arrived, but obviously the weather in Ireland got into it, and it ended up looking downright awful. Very much how Megsy's hair looks about 75% of the time. I honestly do not blame Catherine for lightening her hair. We all colour and restyle our hair, and I've done things far more drastic than that. But whoever put the highlights or the lowlights or lightened her hair is not a colourist. It was not a job well done. It sort of is something, well, awful with a tinge of green, and her hair needs a very good cut. Please, my friends, do not come for me. If she was my daughter, I would have said the exact same thing, and I love my daughters. Then they also welcomed Prince Hussein and Princess Rajwa of Jordan. And sorry guys, but the pantsuit and hair is indeed a hard no from me. The pantsuit was neat, no creases or stains, and it fitted very well. But it is old-fashioned, and the colour is somewhere between shit and sand. And again, the ends of the hair needs a couple of inches trim. Sorry, Catherine, we still adore you, but you need to step up your game. This 7 same suits just in a different colour, 5 same dresses just in different colours, well, it's just not working for me. It's like wearing a uniform. You don't have to wonder what you are going to wear. You just get into your uniform. Catherine is wearing more pantsuits than she would likely have done if the Queen was still alive. And I guess that is her choice. Her body, her choice. But goodness, there are a variety of pantsuits out there. The same suit in different colours are going to cost just as much as 4 different styles. I've seen pantsuits on Shane, far nicer than what Catherine is wearing lately. Anyway, come for me, guys. I can't help it, and I'm used to it. But what I've just said is the truth, whether we like it or not. Okay. So now that I'm already in trouble with you, let's start with part 5 of our deep dive. Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip made a state visit to Russia from the 17th until the 20th of October 1994. At the time, it was the first visit by a British monarch to Russia. Now, Putin himself had been to Britain a couple of times. His first state visit to England was in June 2003. It was also the first state visit to England by a Russian leader in 125 years. In 2012, Putin visited London again. But, the Queen seemed destined to be tied to Russia one way or another. Anthony Blunt, the Queen's surveyor of the Queen's pictures in 1964, he confessed to spying for the USSR, or then Russia. Declassified documents revealed that the Queen was not officially informed and that the government delayed and kept the information from her until 1973. Also interesting is that Prince Philip was related to the Romanovs through both his mother and father. He was the grandnephew of Alexandra Romanov, Nicholas II's wife. He was also a cousin to the Russian royal family. It was, in truth, Prince Philip's DNA which was used to identify the remains of two children found in a field as that of Maria and Alexei Romanov. The Queen's first cousin, Prince Michael of Kent, is also the grandson of Grand Duchess Elena Vladimirovna of Russia. Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip are also related to the Romanovs through Queen Victoria, as she was Tsarina Alexandra's grandmother. There are indeed several other myths and fables and rumors about the Russian connection to the British royal family. But when it comes to certain younger individuals within the royal family, or shall we say ex-royal individuals, and their Russian connections, then everything else pales in comparison. And yes, I'm talking about Harry and his missus, the dreadful delusional Duchess. And you guys better sit down and take a breath. Okay, now, how many of you know who Yuri Milner is? I'm sure some of you have heard the name before, and very likely in connection to Harry. Yuri Borisovich Milner is a Soviet-born Israeli entrepreneur, investor, physicist, and scientist. He was born on the 11th of November 1961 in Moscow. He attended Moscow State University and later also the University of Pennsylvania. Yes, he is a businessman, a venture capitalist, founder of Digital Sky Technologies, DST Global, and with investments in other huge companies. His portfolio includes investments in Facebook, WhatsApp, Snapchat, Airbnb, Spotify, Alibaba, and the list goes on and on and on and on. Yuri Milner is worth approximately 6.9 billion with a B US dollars. Now, I'm not going to go into the Paradise Papers or the Panama Papers because it's not what this video is about. We can, if you want to, do that some other day because there are indeed royals involved. Anyway, in 2019, Harry met Yuri Milner at the Google Camp conference in Sicily. Very few people paid attention to the interaction between Yuri Milner and Harry. But Harry and Yuri, who was even wealthier than Harry's grandmother, wink, 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 spent some time in conversation. Well, many of the camps stayed at the Verdura, yeah, can't read my own handwriting today, at the Verdura Golf and Spa Resort. Yuri Milner stayed on his super yacht Andromeda, a 107-meter vessel with a helipad, cabins for city overnight guests, and a crew of 43. During the 3-day Google event, he hosted an onboard cocktail party, which included guests like Leonardo DiCaprio, Tom Cruise, Orlando Bloom, and, likely, also old Harry, whom Yuri had indeed added to his list of famous friends. For several weeks over Christmas 2019, Harry and Meghan and Archie stayed in Millefleur on Vancouver Island, allegedly for free. At first it was unsure who the owner was, but it was known that Yuri Milner and his family had stayed there before, but he absolutely denied that he owned the property. However, it then leaked that David Foster had arranged the stay in Millefleur, and guess who is very good friends with David Foster, who coincidentally also has a holiday home on Vancouver Island? Well, none other than Yuri Milner. Well, suffice it to say, it was later found out that although ownership is hidden behind corporations, etc., that Yuri Milner was at least one of the human entities behind it. We then know the story of Meghan phoning Tyler Perry, then staying in his home until they found their own, blah, blah, blah. We also know, and the evidence or proof is still all over the internet, so there's no fantasy or craziness here. It just is what it is. Well, and that is that we know that Harry and Meghan bought the property for well under the asking price. It is a matter of record that Sergei Grishin, a Russian, bought the property in 2009 for $25.3 million. He previously listed it for $34.5 million in 2015, and although there was a price drop, no one would have expected him to sell it to Harry and Meghan, or anyone else for that matter, for $14.65 million. There were all kinds of allegations from his ex-wife, namely that he was being spiteful and fleecing her out of money, etc. But after a thorough investigation by a group of people, whom I am not going to mention by name, it was found that there was tremendous pressure on Sergei Grishin to sell the house to Harry and Meghan at this incredibly reduced price. And yes, the pressure came from somewhere within Russia. And as very few people prefer or like to acknowledge, Yuri Milner, friends with Harry and David Foster, still has business interests in Russia and is indeed also very pro-Russia. At some point, Sergei Grishin returned to Russia. That's now after he sold the house to Harry and Meghan, and then he subsequently, very soon thereafter, died. Okay, so the plot sickens, but let's move on. Now, we were wondering how Harry and Meghan could afford a place like their Monteshit show home, even at that very, very reduced price. Well, I'm told that Pa, Prince Charles at the time, and now King Charles, underwrote their mortgage, getting them a far better rate. But you see, just to get back to the Paradise Papers, both Queen Elizabeth and Yuri Milner were listed because of their investments in the Cayman Islands. So, let's leave it there. When it comes to Harry and his sudden close ties to a couple of Russians, namely Yuri Milner, Sergei Brin and Sergei Grishin, it is thus no surprise that Harry may find himself on a couple of watch lists, or then him and his wife, but for different reasons, okay? Those reasons could be that not only did Yuri Milner sponsor Harry and Meghan's stay in Villa Fleur on Vancouver Island, but allegedly he has also helped with the setup and initial funding of Archwell. It is also alleged that it does not end there. It is now alleged that Milner has poured some money into their filming endeavours and a few of their so-called pseudo-royal trips, like the one to Colombia. Allegedly, okay, maybe conspiracy theory, but you know what they say about a conspiracy theory. It is usually just the theory proven to be correct a little later, or much later, depending. It is also told to me, now remember, I do as much research as I can, and the only guarantee I can give you is the possibility of truth, okay? Anyway, it was told to me that the money which went from Archwell to Biden's daughter was actually Milner funneling money to the Bidens through Archwell. I'm also told that Harry and Meghan have stayed in Yuri's apartment in New York City a couple of times. Well, my dear friends, the more I look into the Harkles and their dubious friendships and dealings, the more I discover about some dubious dealings of other royals. I kid you not, it is a scary rabbit hole to go down. My eyes are opening to things I thought were only fairy tales. But my friends, it is time for me to go. Tomorrow and on Sunday we'll still continue these deep dives, and then next week we are going to go full on celebrity gossip mode, okay? But you'll see when we get there. Okay guys, so I'll be back tomorrow, so until then, please take good care of yourselves and stay safe. Bye.